Welcome to our farm. Welcome to Peach and Pippin, and we're going to show you some of the lovely things that we have growing on our farm and all the life that's part of it. Here's a little bit of rhubarb, which is the first thing that's coming up in spring. We're essentially a fruit farm, but we have all sorts of things growing on our farm. We really like mixture. We like lots of different things feeding the other things. We're like a whole system. Our farm is quite small, but because we look after the systems, it can do a lot. An orchard is when there are lots of fruit trees planted together. We've got lots of orchards here, and they go in stages very cleverly. They've been planted so that as the seasons go by, the different apple types and the plums and the pears ripen. So at the start of the season, in about August, the green gauges, which are behind me, and the discovery apple trees and the scrumptious apple trees, that's actually what those apples are called, these are the ones that come ripe in August. And then the other plum types are behind me on the other side. And then once we've picked all those over a week or two, it's incredibly clever, is that the next stage then becomes ripe, which is the first of the pear trees down here, and the next type of apples, and so on and so on. And it's very exciting in the autumn as you gradually walk down and you see the next fruit becoming ripe. So here's a really lovely pear tree, and it's in the second section really, because pears don't ripen as early as our first apples and plums. We really love looking after our soil. You have to feed the soil because the soil really does so much for the plants. Obviously they need water, and that's held in the soil really, and light, and heat of course. But if you really look after the soil, and here you've got some wood chipping. So when we prune our trees, we chip all the wood, and then we get to spread it all around our trees, which we haven't quite yet done with this pile, and it feeds the soil. So then the soil gets all the nutrients from the chippings, and it comes back down into the soil to then come back up through the trees again. So we get healthy fruit trees. So we really make sure we give as much attention to the soil as we do to the trees, because it's the soil that feeds everything. These are our worm bins, and we don't have very many animals on our farm that we keep, but we do keep worms. Can you see them? So we put a lot of our food waste in here, and then the worms eat it up, and then the soil comes out the other end, worm poo, and it makes really healthy soil. Here's one of our orchard sections, and there really isn't very much to see at all in February. You can just about make out the buds of the leaves coming through, and then as the season goes by, you'll get the leaves and the blossom, and then the blossom is helped by the bees to turn into fruit, and then it all ripens in late summer and all the way through autumn. You can see behind me against the sky some really tall trees, and you might think we don't really need those, they're just big tall trees, maybe creating a bit of shade that some people would say they didn't want. But we keep the tall trees because they're a habitat for different types of things, different birds. So some birds will live in smaller, shorter trees and hedges and things like that, and some other birds, like birds of prey, will enjoy the taller trees. And so we need the variety in our surroundings to keep the whole system working. And we have to look after the trees so that we can reach them. So sometimes they grow too tall, so we have to prune them. And it's really important to have lots of air as well circulating. So we thin them out, we chop out some of the branches so that there's enough air to give the fruit lots of air and space. So they do need quite a lot of looking after, fruit trees. I'm just coming to the end of our farm, walked down past all our orchards, and another part of the system, if you like, is this wood. It's quite a small wood, and it's quite bare at the moment because it's spring, isn't it? It's just coming to spring, so none of the leaves have come out. So in a funny way, this time of year is quite light in a wood because there aren't any leaves. In the summer it's much darker because the leaves are shading the sun from the woodland floor. And we have a wood, again, because it provides a really good habitat for lots of wildlife that then looks after our farm, bees and insects and birds. And the other thing is we use the wood. So there's a little bit here, we've chopped quite a lot of it up. But every year or two we will chop down some trees, we'll coppice them. So there's a coppiced tree where we've chopped it, and then lots of new shoots grow up to produce more wood. That we then use to build things, to put around beds, and to burn in a fire to keep our house warm. We absolutely love our chickens. And at the moment they're staying lovely and cosy and warm in our big greenhouse. And they root around in the earth and clear the ground. So they're part of our system as well for looking after the soil. And here they are in their nesting boxes. And we sell lots and lots of eggs to people who live around us, quite close by. Lots of boxes go out twice a week. And there are some of the eggs. We're called Peach and Pippin partly because we're very lucky to have peach trees, and the peach trees need it to be warm, and so they live in the greenhouse. And you can just see some peach tree blossom. And it's the earliest blossom. I don't know if you can see a little bit of red peeking out of the buds. I've said that we really like variety on our farm, and that also means variety with humans. We really love having visitors, and some people rent this pod that you can see. They come to volunteer on the farm, help us out. Sometimes people are really interested in finding out more about how to run orchards. Sometimes they just want to get away from the city and the hustle and bustle of where they live, and they find that the farm is somewhere for peace and quiet. So finally, here's our pond. And we've been giving quite a lot of attention to our pond. It still isn't quite right. We relined it last year, but we've put this really lovely fountain in. And what that does, it aerates the water, so it's got lots of oxygen in, and it will help it be really healthy. So it's another example of trying to make the systems work to keep everything healthy. And the pond is part of our wildlife too. So that also means that different birds and creatures are attracted to the area, and the more natural wildlife we've got, the more imbalanced it all is, and it helps everything grow, keeps the whole system flowing.